where I was reading along and I read a page or a paragraph or even a sentence, and I thought, doggone, I could do that better than this, you know. So there, that planted the seed.
I gave you that book for free, Harry. You don't have to criticize.
And so that planted the seed, and I was like Jeff. I kind of played at it when I was in school, very briefly, and then 20 years blow by, and I decide, well, there's only so many years left, so I better get on it. And so I took some classes at SMU, continuing ed classes at SMU, and then started writing. And that's cutting out a whole lot, but the first thing I wrote was still really.
I still have time to read or something.
The Gen 13 is like
No, I really don't. I mean, I don't have a book out right now, so I'm not on tour or anything. I'm just doing this for fun. This is actually fun. So I do have time now to read, but prior to that, for the last 5 years, it's not been a lot of reading.
Yeah, your reading time goes way down. It's the downside.
Especially if you have a monthly comic book that has to come out every month.
Yeah,
or they die, or they kill you. Now, in answer to that, there is one right there.
There you go.
My answer to that question is I actually started writing in first grade because they gave us a project where we took cloth and we made books and we glued pages together. So we got a bunch of first graders with blank pages, and they're like, "Oh, kids, you should write something." And I said, "Okay," and I proceeded to sit down and write a story about a hard-boiled detective who tracked down dwarves who'd been stealing donuts. This is totally true. And the book ends with the most appalling bloodbath ever written by a first grader. And now they would come
Did you
get
go
me.
back donuts?
No, don't steal that. Don't steal that. I'm optioning that to Hollywood. No, but so like nowadays, people would come get me and say, "Oh, this child needs some help," and they would take. But then it was like, "Oh, that's cute with your
He's creative.
Death dwarves," you know. But professionally, you know, I was in grad school. I was reading a lot of stuff which was good, but it was like classically, it was like school good, you know, like here's Faulkner, here's this, and it's like, and that's good stuff, but I said, I'm going to just write something, I'm just going to commit. I wrote Gun Monkeys, and it was like, this guy, I'm just going to commit to this novel, and it was very Tarantino kind of story, and that was my first published novel when I was still in grad school, but, so that was the beginning of my professional career, but all through grade school, high school, writing those stories, and actually writing to Marvel Comics and getting, at the time, Jim Shooter was the editor of Marvel Comics, and I would write, "Dear Jim Shooter, here's a character called Sunlord," which is like a rip-off of the Human Torch, but I always got nice letters back, and it was like cool. And my brother had How to Draw Marvel Comics the Marvel Way, and we were like a team, and so it's kind of weird that now I'm doing some writing for them when I was at 8 years old, sending stuff in. Actually, it's stuff when I was 8. Oh.
So, your first published novel was a novel. How did you end up getting into writing comics?
That's what I was going to do. And this goes back to agents. This goes back to agents because I broke up with my first agent with a speech which was, "It's you, not me." And I said, I'm going to pick a new agent, but I want to diversify. I love novels. I always want to write novels. But I love comics. I love screenplays. Anywhere there's any way you can tell a story, I wanted to do it. So I didn't want to do just novels. And there's a guy, actually here in Dallas, an agent called David Hill Smith, that represented Greg Rucka, and that represented Dwayne Straczynski and Greg Pak, who had been doing some stuff. I said, "Hey, if you would be my agent, can you get me in on some of that sweet funny book action?" And he said, "Oh yeah, we'll hook you up with that." And I said, "Good." A year went by. But finally I got a call, and he said, "We got an editor at Marvel. He wants to talk to you." And that ended with my first ever comic book, which is sold out. They only had one. Was The Punisher. A Little Black Book was a Punisher one-shot, and that's how I got into comics. Further questions? No. Oh, well, okay. All right.
Oh, here's the baby. All right.
Nobody else is allowed to have
Everybody
babies.
uses their kids as an excuse.
I'm staying away from it, don't worry.
Okay, good job.
So you know how every author kind of has their own tone. I haven't read any of your stuff yet, except for a couple of the comic books. But you said you did Punisher, and I know you also wrote for was it Deadpool?
Yes.
So those have got to be completely 180 from each other. Punisher's not a very funny guy. So how do you...
No, but he can be in a dark... He himself is not a jokey, funny character, but he can be in a sort of darkly funny situation. There are people who found Welcome to the Bayou, the arc set in Louisiana, sort of darkly, the situation sort of darkly funny, even though Punisher himself is not a quippy, jokey kind of character. But, you know, the editors, the Punisher, and this is not a hard and fast rule, but the editor that I work with at Marvel has a habit of sort of bringing in novelists and trying them out on Punisher seems to be a way to try them out, and then moving them to other things. So I kind of earned my bones on Punisher, and then, but it was actually because he read one of my novels, which was sort of satirical, and a sort of satirical. It was called Go-Go Girls of the Apocalypse, and it was like funny but violent, both together. And he thought, you know, you can maybe do some Deadpool, and that's kind of how that worked out.
I wanted to ask on that one, because I know you've done your own work, and then you also enter into characters that have already been developed.
Right.
And you have to do that. I want to know what your guys' ideas were on that as well. When right now you guys are writing your own books, you're writing your own characters, creating and whatnot. What would it be for you to start doing something like that, where you would have to enter even like a series or something like that already had pre-made characters that you had to contribute to? How does it work for you, and how would it work for you guys? Would you like to do
I think I might slip my wrist more often. I don't know.
Yeah, I always say this. I'm always open to anything that comes my way. I'm not always a good fit for things that come my way. There was a couple of years ago, I had an offer that came through my agent to do kind of a tryout for a young adult fantasy series. And at the time I was busy. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll try it. And it was murder for me. I was not good at it, and I immediately knew it. And I said, you know what, I don't want to waste anybody's time. So I'm just going to tell you right now, I suck at this. So let's just pass on it and give it to somebody who will do a much better job with it, because it wasn't for me. You know, I always look at things that come my way. You know, it's a matter of fit more than anything else, and making sure that I'm doing right by, you know, whatever the project is. You know, if I can't do it, I won't do it. I won't force it. And I knew immediately with this, I was like, oh, I'm sure the wrong person for this. It was humbling.
My process is so hard with the ones I create. I don't know. Sometimes I think it'd be refreshing to go onto someone else's and try them. I've never had the opportunity, so I've never pursued it. One of the things I think would be the most freeing would be to suppress desires always to work like as a writer for a sitcom, where you can do anything you want to with the characters, of course, anything you want to in 22 minutes. Because with a novel, you've got this vast, huge tapestry.
Even short novels are still novels.
Yeah, and they're blank. I mean, totally blank. But with a TV script, you've got to hit the commercial breaks and the turns and so many pages. So I always thought that'd be kind of refreshing. That doesn't answer your question. But,
No, well, it still goes because I'd imagine whenever you go into a sitcom, you're part of a team at that point. So it's not like you could have a person go off and do something that's completely out of character.
Yeah.
And whereas in here you could, because you're creating a character, it goes where you want it to go, whether there's logic or not.
There are a lot of people who kind of specialize in a lot of young adult books, you know, are run through book packaging companies where they slap a name on the book that's on every book in the series, but the books aren't written by that person. They have a team of writers or several writers or whatnot who actually write the series. It's not necessarily the name on the front. The name on the front is probably who wrote the first 2 or 3 books in it, and then it kind of
Like those Destroyer books or something like that.
and so there are people who they actually don't write books under their own name. They'd rather take characters and storylines and have it handed to them and then flesh that out. So I mean, they work the other way, and they would probably have a tougher time creating something from scratch, would be my guess. So I think it's just in how it works for you.
And another thing is, it's nice to have some leadership once in a while. When I write my own,
Yes, it is.
when I write my own book, it's like I got to figure this out. When I wrote Punisher, or I wrote something else, they said, you know, the editor would say, no, do it like this. Good, you know, I know. Oh, some answers. Somebody has some answers. Good, you know, so he knows what to do.